Okay, we're live. Welcome, everybody. My name is Catherine, and I am from Denver Natural Mom, and I'm very excited about our panel today, sponsored by Baby and Company, and we are talking about getting pregnant, the truth and the myths. And I would love to introduce to you our panel of experts today that will be sharing some of their experiences as well as answering your questions. Our chat window is live, so feel free to drop a question there, and we have a few that were pre-submitted that we'll run through. So with that, let me just turn it over to our panelists and let them tell you a little bit about themselves, their work, and how they work with women who are trying to conceive. So Erin, would you mind kicking us off?
Sure. So I'm Erin Nye. I am one of the midwives at Baby and Company. And the way that I help with women who are trying to conceive is that we offer fertility counseling and preconception visits. So that's kind of where my expertise lies in the area.
Fantastic. How about you, Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Snow. I'm a holistic fertility counselor. My background is kind of a mix on how I work with fertility. I'm a clinical herbalist and a clinical nutritionist, and what that means is I've been trained and have experience using herbal and nutritional therapeutics in a medical setting. So I've worked in hospitals and fertility clinics and holistic clinics, and I'm also a doula and a student midwife. So I bring all of those together and I help women prepare their body to conceive.
Fantastic. All right, Tori, last but not least.
Hi, thanks, Catherine. My name is Tori Ivanek, and I am a physician assistant, but also a homeopath. And so I have about 12 years of experience in family practice as a physician assistant, and a lot of that time I was working with an MD that also did homeopathy. And if you don't know about homeopathy, it uses natural substances to stimulate the body to heal itself. So if you are struggling with fertility issues, the right homeopathic remedy can help you to let your body do it naturally and then go ahead and get pregnant.
Okay, fantastic. Well, why don't we kick off with talking about some of the myths and the truths that we do here. There's tons of discussion in this area, and I know that's why we were able to get so many interested ladies tuning in today to hear what you all have to say. So let's just run down the line and share with us a myth that you run across in the women that you're helping. Tori, let's start with you.
Okay. So one of the things that I have actually heard as a myth is that worrying too much about getting pregnant can cause you to not get pregnant. And I even, searched it a little bit to see what it said on the internet, and there was an article on parents.com that just said, clinically speaking, there is absolutely no reason that you should not get pregnant if you're worrying about it too much. But in my opinion, there's a level of stress that comes along with that worry. So I think this myth has truth to it, just in that I think some people, and some women especially, that get set on a career path, and then maybe it's a little bit later in life when they want to get pregnant, and they have a certain time frame that they want to get pregnant, that amount of control over when you get pregnant, if you get pregnant, I think that stress level in your body really can inhibit you from getting pregnant. And so so there's truth in that myth, just in that trying to control it and get pregnant in a certain month or on a certain time schedule for when the baby's born, I think does bring your stress hormones up and then makes it much harder to conceive.
Great. Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Okay, Rachel, I know you have a list of these to share with us today.
I don't have to share the whole list. I can just share one.
Okay.
I think the one that I hear the most, at least, is I have regular cycles, so I'm fertile. And I think that is a big myth. Just because you have a period every 30 days or every 40 days does not mean necessarily that you're even ovulating. It does not mean necessarily that your hormones are balanced, that you have enough progesterone, that you're producing enough progesterone to sustain a pregnancy. It does not mean that your eggs are viable. So it doesn't mean cut and dry. regular cycles, I am fertile, I can have a baby. And I think that's where a lot of frustration happens for women who do have regular cycles and are not getting pregnant. It's because they believe that, or they have a limited knowledge on what exactly is happening in their body during their cycle and when to have sex to have a pregnancy and when it's time to look for help. So that's the biggest myth that I hear often.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. How about you, Erin? I mean, I know that you are a midwife, so you get to see women when they've kind of surpassed some of this. But in your experience, are there things that we're kind of doing ourselves a disservice maybe by telling ourselves or telling our friends?
I would say one of the big things that I think people believe is that most people, it's easy to get pregnant, and most people get pregnant at the drop of a hat. Not that that's not the case for some women, but it is normal for it to take some time. Even in perfectly healthy women who have balanced hormones, and there's not really anything technically wrong with them, you have a 25% chance in perfect circumstances each cycle that you're going to actually conceive. So I know that was something that I struggled with in trying to get pregnant, even with all the knowledge that I had, was that it didn't happen quickly. I'm a healthy individual with no health conditions that I know of that would prevent me from getting pregnant, or my husband, and it took us 1.5 years to get pregnant. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest myths that women allow themselves to believe that then leads into some of that stress and worry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a great point, and thank you for sharing some of your personal experience with that, because I think it really helps to give credibility. We're all different, and even for healthy people in perfect circumstances. So, okay, so what about, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about some truths, like some things that people can trust about their bodies or this process. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
All right.
I think trying to get pregnant can be really frustrating. Like Erin was touching on, is that it can take time, even if there's nothing wrong with you. And there's nothing really wrong with anybody. I see cultivating fertility as something that, as a woman, our fertility is representative of our equilibrium, the balance in our body. And we're constantly changing. We're humans. We're adapting. We might have a really stressful week and then go on vacation. We're not always on this straight and narrow path. And I think that some of the truths for women who are trying to get pregnant are, there's nothing wrong with your body at all. Whether you have endometriosis or PCOS or whatever, there's nothing that means that you're broken. And there's always something that you can do to help heal your body. And even if you're going through IVF or there's nothing on paper that says there's something out of balance. There's always something you can do to nourish and nurture and love and care for yourself that will help bring you into a more state of fertility. And I use the word fertility to just mean really that energy of a nourished nest. And that's I think really important for women to remember, is there's nothing wrong with you, you're not broken, and there's always something special you can do for yourself to help nurture your nest.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. That's such a great point. How about you, Tori? I mean, you work in kind of helping people who are on that path of nurturing themselves and healing themselves. So can you speak to some of the truths that you've seen?
Right. I would agree with Rachel 100%. I love the way she spoke that. For me, the two kind of pieces of wisdom that I wanted to share was that if and when you start to want to have a baby, instead of thinking of it as trying to get pregnant, maybe just think of it as not trying not to anymore. Most women in this society have been in relationships for many years, possibly, maybe not, but very few, get married at age 16 and get pregnant the next year as a societal norm. So a lot of us, when we're trying to get pregnant, we have probably been trying not to get pregnant for a portion of our adult life. And that switch in that mentality of just not trying not to anymore, I think is a much more inviting and opening way to look at conception rather than I want to get pregnant right now, And so trying to kind of just shift your thinking in the way you look at it, and also enjoying your partnership, whatever partnership relationship you're in. If you're wanting to have a child with this person, you should really be celebrating that relationship and really enjoying it, because once you have that child, things change a lot and gets a lot harder to spend, quality time with your partner. And so if you can really enjoy those months and hopefully months, years, whatever you want it to be, of just really being present with your partner and enjoying them and celebrating that relationship, then when you do get pregnant, it's that much more joyful and not like a sigh of relief of finally we're pregnant. It should be just celebratory. So that's one thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How about you, Erin?
I don't know. I don't know if I have anything specific to say, but just to bounce off of what has already been said, I 100% agree. I do think that there is definitely a mind-body connection, and I know for me it was very easy to get really discouraged in my body and to feel, even though, I love that you were talking about how there's not anything necessarily wrong with your body, because that's the first place that you go when you can't get pregnant as soon as you expect, is that, there is something wrong with me, something's not right with my body, something's wrong, what can I do to fix it? So I definitely encourage people as much as possible to do what Tori was saying and to try to approach it as more of a not trying approach, because it gets really stressful to be actively trying, and it can become a huge mental mind game. And so I do think it's important to try to enjoy the time as much as possible, to take time to be intentional, to have intentional relationships and intentional time that you take care of yourself, not just because you're trying to get pregnant, but because you're trying to take care of the mental and emotional and spiritual aspects of your life while trying to conceive as well.
I love this group because everyone's nodding. We're all like, yes, more of that. So let's switch gears just for a second, because we've touched on a few things that people have asked us, for more clarification on. And one of those things is, how long do we try or not try, or not try not to, before we should seek some kind of guidance or help? So I'd love to get your thoughts, and they may be different. I think that's entirely reasonable. But as to when should people kind of say, okay, maybe there's something I'm missing here, and maybe I do need some additional guidance and support. So Erin, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think it's a very individual thing. Partially because, as we were kind of talking about earlier, everyone has different awareness of their body and their cycles and whether they're ovulating or not. I think it's a little different for the person who's not trying, not planning, who doesn't really know particularly when they're ovulating, they're not tracking their cycles or taking temps. For someone who knows exactly when they ovulate, knows that they've had well-timed intercourse, they might seek help a little bit sooner. I think that the technical medical time would be after a year of trying without conception would be when you would want to start seeking help and maybe looking at investigating a little further. But that being said, as I told you guys earlier, it took a year and a half for me, and I did pursue further options, and thankfully eventually spontaneously got pregnant. But in retrospect, I kind of wonder if I had been less intense about it and given my body more time, if some of that would have not necessarily been necessary. So I think it's a very personal decision and an individual one.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. So Rachel, you see a lot of women at different stages in this process. People who are getting ready to start trying, or people who have already been trying. So in your experience, how do you advise them on this?
Yeah, good question, and I totally agree. It's 100% individual for you, where you're at, your history, your mentality. I think if probably the women who eventually do come to me are the ones who have been trying for months and they have not gotten pregnant. But I do also work with women who are, I live in Boulder, so I have a lot of those athlete mamas, athletic clients who have 3 cycles a year and they're 38 and they know that they're going to get married next year and they want to have a baby shortly after, and they come to me and say, what do I need to do now so that when I want to start trying, my body's ready? And I love those. I love women who come to me with that intention because they recognize that, okay, 3 cycles a year might not be what I need, and what do I need to do now to like get ready? So I think it's different for everyone and who you are and what type of personality you have. But I would say if you've been trying for 6 months, 6 to 12 months, without charting your cycles, you're not taking your temps, and you have an intuition that maybe something is just not happening, then I would say it doesn't hurt to see an acupuncturist or an herbalist or a midwife or someone just to homeopathy, like just to kind of see if there's any extra support that you could benefit from.
Great. How about you, Tori? When you meet women, are they on this journey already? Have they been trying for a long time? Do you wish you had seen them sooner?
Yes, yes, and yes, and yes. Usually, you know, there's some red flags that I would say to watch out for. So if you are having, you know, really bad PMS or chronic migraines that cycle with your periods or something that you can tell is not quite right with your hormone balance, then it's probably a better idea to reach out sooner than later. So when you're not trying not to, and you notice, because you hopefully are paying attention to your body enough to notice that, yeah, every month, right before my period, I get this one-day migraine. That's a red flag that should send someone in sooner. You know, if you've been diagnosed with PCOS or, you know, endometriosis, something that you know could potentially decrease your ability to get pregnant, then I would say reach out sooner and really start with yourself. So if you can change your diet and, you know, take some things out of your diet, even if it's just the big ones like dairy and wheat, and see if that changes your hormone cycle, start with yourself and make sure you're taking really good care of yourself. You know, getting exercise every single day if possible, eating whole natural foods, and nothing is shifting, then it's really time to reach out sooner. But yeah, I think that a typical person, you're trying for a year and not charting or anything, then it's time to look a little bit. But always, always, always start with taking care of yourself. And if you can take care of yourself and see shifts in your own body and your cycles, then probably you're on the right path. And finding, you know, just some nutritional counseling or a homeopathic remedy, again, will probably get you to where you need to be without pharmaceutical interventions if possible.
So now we've had 2 people mention charting, and I don't want to make any assumptions about what our people know about or don't know about. So Rachel, I know we practiced this, but could you show us a sample chart and just briefly give us a little bit of insight into what charting is, why it could help us, and I'll let you get your screen up and ready, because this is what some people know a lot about and others are just being introduced to. So I'm going to make sure we cover this too.
Absolutely. So charting is, if you've never heard of it, it's basically, the name for it is Symptothermal Fertility Awareness Method, or just FAM, I like to call it, FAM. Some people know it by natural family planning, which is what a lot of religions who don't believe in using barrier methods use as a way to plan when they'll have children. It can be used as birth control, or it can be used to enhance your chances of conception. Basically, I think it's super cool. I'm really into it, as you can tell. It's kind of like creating your own little personal graph on your menstrual cycle, and every single day you collect data, which is in the form of taking your temperature and checking your cervical fluid, and I'll mention what that is in just a minute. And it takes literally less than a minute per day to do, but at the end of the month you'll see you get this chart that looks like this. And if you've never seen one, it probably looks very confusing. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, what is that? But once you do it for at least a cycle or two, you really, it's super easy to understand exactly what this is telling you. And what charting tells you is when you've ovulated, if you've ovulated, if you got pregnant to the day. It shows you any hormonal imbalances that you might have, any thyroid, adrenal, all of those issues that otherwise you might have to spend lots of money on lab panels and endocrinologist appointments to find out. It's a really, really, really useful gynecological tool. Essentially how it works is estrogen, which is the hormone that's predominant before you ovulate, cools your temperature. And then progesterone, which is the hormone that is predominant after you ovulate, warms your body temperature. Progesterone is also the hormone that's needed to sustain a pregnancy. So in the first half of your cycle, I don't know if you can see my mouse, in the first half of your cycle, which is the follicular phase, your temps will be lower because you're predominantly producing estrogen. And then you ovulate, and then once ovulation happens, your hormones will start producing more of progesterone, so that'll become predominant. So you'll be able to see on your chart when you ovulate. What's significant about charting for especially women who, what I see a lot is women who have frequent miscarriages or women who have really early miscarriages all the time, like maybe they're miscarrying at 2 to 3 weeks. And sometimes those women don't even know they're getting pregnant. They just think their periods are late and they've been trying for years and they don't understand. But we can see that in a chart. Whoops. Sorry, you just got a little ovary.
Just a little overreaction for you.
It's a really cool, if anyone's squeamish here, I won't show it. But so in this luteal phase, which is after you've ovulated, if you have a very short phase, which if you've been charting you would know, let's say you only have about 11 days from when you ovulate to when you get your period. That's a short phase, and that's not long enough to get pregnant. You need at least 12, optimally 13, 14, 15 days. So that's one way that charting can help you see, oh, and this is what I see most in my practice, is women with like 9-day luteal phases, 10, 11 days. And what's amazing is lots of natural things can lengthen it. Sleep is the biggest one, stress, de-stress, diet changes, herbs, acupuncture. So it's not, I'm making it very technical, but it's kind of just it's a really cool way to geek out on your menstrual cycle and see exactly what's happening in your body. So charting is pretty cool for another reason. I may not pull this up because it's a pop quiz, but basically 1/3 of couples with infertility, diagnosed infertility in this country, so 1 in 6 couples in this country has trouble getting pregnant. 1/3 of them is due to a female issue, and that might be tubal blockage or damage, PCOS, all the things we mentioned. Another third would be male issue, like sperm or reverse, a male issue. And if you don't know that you have one of those issues, you fall into the other third, which is undiagnosed or mysterious infertility. If you're in that category, 50% of you are just mistiming intercourse. So there's only 5 days in your cycle that you can get pregnant. And most people, if you have a busy life and you've been with your partner for a long time, you're usually not having sex every single day, and even if so there's a very small window where conception can actually occur. So the way that this method works is it lets you know exactly when you're fertile, which days you will conceive or you're more likely to conceive on, and then it shows you when you get pregnant. So that's my spiel. I can stop the screen share now. But that's charting in a nutshell, and it's really cool and it's super easy, and all you need is a thermometer and your fingers. It couldn't be more simple.
So you mentioned geeking out, and we've talked about kind of different personalities as you approach, conception and trying to get pregnant. And I'm totally a geek, so charting was really resonated with my personality. And Tori kind of brings up this other side of people that maybe this is really overwhelming. Like looking at that spreadsheet was a little bit daunting. So we just want to make sure that we're telling everybody there's something for you, right? Regardless of kind of how nerdy over your cycle you want to get.
It is for everyone.
Yeah, I think sometimes, and there are a ton of amazing resources on FAM. People like Rachel who teach it, one-on-one or in groups. There are books. Let's go through, if people can share some of their favorite resources. That we can kind of point some of these ladies to who are entering this phase of life of trying to learn more about their bodies or better understand, and I think we can all agree that Google is usually not our friend. So does anybody have one that they want to share?
One of the books that I love to recommend to people is Taking Charge of Your Fertility, especially if you're wanting to learn for the fertility awareness method. It's very detailed and in-depth. And then a great app to actually keep track of your cycles if you don't want to do it on pen and paper is Fertility Friend.
Okay. How about you, Rachel? Are there other resources that you point moms to?
Oh, yeah. I love Taking Charge of Your Fertility. It's definitely more for those people that I read it cover to cover and it's this big, but I'm also super nerd on hormones and stuff. So if that's not you, don't get that book. This book I just shared, Garden of Fertility, is a little bit more, it touches on more of holistic, spiritual, supportive aspects. It does teach you how to chart. It's a great resource. I also love apps. I used to work for Kindara, which is a Boulder app. Body basal temperature app, and it kind of teaches you as you go. So if you are new to it, it's a really user-friendly app. I also love, if we're just talking about charting, there's online, I don't know the name of the website, but I believe it's TCOYF, which is takingchargeofyourfertility.com. There's online forums, which are also rabbit holes like Google, but if you don't have someone like myself or who's an expert at looking at charts and you're not sure what your chart is saying, you can reach out to your community members and be like, am I ovulating? Or am I getting pregnant? What's going on? So those are my favorite for charting resources.
Okay, so let's go beyond charting then. What about do you have ideas for things that are maybe not specific to just learning this method but are helpful for this phase of life?
Oh, definitely. If anyone is not familiar with Mayan abdominal massage, I would look it up and find a practitioner near you. Mayan abdominal massage is kind of just a good place to go if you're not wanting to chart, even if you are wanting to chart, if you're just wanting to start and the idea of preparing your womb and just bringing nourishment and love and intention and focus to your womb. Learning how to do that and finding a practitioner that can teach you or do it to you is, I think, a really beautiful, it brings in kind of the physiological aspects of fertility and also deep spiritual and intentional connection. So I think that's a good place to start.
Great. And so we've mentioned and touched on a few other ways people can start to kind of take things into their own hands. And some of those were as easy as sleep, diet. Are there things along those lines that you guys want to throw into the mix? Acupuncture was named. What are some of the other, obviously, herbs with the guidance of an herbalist? So, Tori, do you have anything you want to weigh in on that side?
Yeah, well, I think just pointing out the word that you used, something as easy as sleep. I think.
Sorry, I know.
No, but I think that's great because I think we do kind of assume that it's easy for people to know what to eat. It's easy for people to get enough sleep, but from my experience, I was working full-time as a family practitioner when I was about to get pregnant with my son, and my life was full. And I think all women who are, entering into this this time where they want to get pregnant, it's not like they have an extra 6 or 8 hours a day that they can fill with a baby, you know? Like their lives are already full, and they're operating on a mechanism of a certain amount of sleep in a certain way that they eat, and whether or not they're exercising. And we are lucky enough to live in an area where most people take their health pretty seriously. But I came from most recently a place in California where, you know, the obesity rates are much, much higher, and the poverty rate is much, much higher, and people don't have the finances nor the maybe sometimes even knowledge of how to take care of their own bodies. And so I think it's a really great idea for women who are wanting to get pregnant to start really evaluating how they are living. And so if they're not getting at least 7 hours of sleep a night, and if they're not eating mostly normal, natural-looking foods and not things that come out of boxes and bags and cans, then just starting with those basics. But those basics can be the absolute hardest things. So really, you know, shifting habits takes a good 30 days, and kind of, you know, getting some accountability buddies, whether that be friends or neighbors or parents or whoever, that can help them to really get on track with just those really hard but basic, you know, life skills. You know, busy working women don't typically, you know, stop to eat 3 great meals a day, and so if that's part of it, you know, that we need to start there.
Yeah, those are great points. Erin, do you have anything that you want to add to this list of recommendations or places to find more support?
I don't think so. I think they covered it pretty well.
Pretty comprehensive, yeah. Tori, do you want to?
One more thing. Can I say one more thing, Catherine?
Yeah, please.
So one thing that that Rachel said is that she deals with some moms that are really high-level athletes, and that's I'm not a high-level athlete, but I was a gymnast, and I do, you know, I fluctuate between, you know, 115, 120 pounds, and I found that I needed to be at least 120 or 122 pounds in order to conceive. So it can be a matter of just a few pounds where your body says to the world, whatever it may be, that okay, now I'm ready. And so that, I think, is something else that we maybe don't talk enough to women about, is that it's not ideal to be at your lowest healthy normal weight. You know, maybe you need to be on the high end of your healthy normal weight in order to get pregnant.
Yeah, I'm glad you chimed in on that. I think that's really interesting, especially being in Colorado. We have so many, you know, people that are active, and that's wonderful. We don't want to discourage anybody from being healthy, but you know, carrying a baby requires different things of our bodies than just what we've been used to in the past. And so this kind of segues me into our one of our last questions that we've had, and maybe you guys can share an opinion on this, but it's about spacing between pregnancies, and if there is some truth or merit to the idea that our bodies need time in between babies. And obviously this question's coming from mamas who have conceived, you know, already and are ready maybe to, or considering going again. So would love to get your feedback on that question. Rachel, I see you nodding, so I'm going to call on you first.
Yeah, I'm really interested in this because yes, there is definitely, I believe, spacing is important. I would say what I've learned, optimally 2 years. I know that a lot of people, that's not in their plans, or maybe it's longer and that's great, or maybe it just happens and shorter, and if you happen to have a baby a year after your last, you're not a bad uterus person, you're not, you know. But looking from, I am really into microflora and bacteria, and studies have shown that women with shorter spaced pregnancies have a more increased likelihood of preterm labor, and that has to do with the disruption of the microflora, the microbiome. That's a whole other long topic, but the more that I read on this and the more studies that do come out, I do believe that you want to give your body at least 2 years, not just from a flora standpoint, but also if you've had diastases recti, which is when the abdominal walls separate, You want to make sure that that's healed and ready to go before you carry another child, because if you've had that, you know that it's really uncomfortable. You put yourself at risk for hernias and back pain, and it's a lot of work to nourish a new life and build not only a human but a whole other organ. It takes a lot of nutritional stores from your body to do that. And if you were nursing, that takes even more nutritional stores. So you want to give yourself time to nourish and rebuild basically your stores, because you want to be your best self at the end of the day for your kids. And if you're anemic or depleted in B12 or all your minerals, like, you're going to be tired and not feel so great. So 2 years is my answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Erin, do you have anything that you recommend in your line of work or in the clinic to moms that are chomping at the bit?
At the time that I see most moms, it's 6 weeks postpartum, so most of them are like, we're good for a while. We're not even thinking about that. They're in the middle of their exhausted breastfeeding up all night, all the fun that comes with having a 6-week-old. But I would agree with the 2 years. Anything less than 18 months, medically speaking, is a short interpregnancy interval. So I totally agree with Rachel. It's important to give your body time to rebuild its stores and to recover from a pregnancy, because it is hard work. It's exhausting. But that being said, we obviously have plenty of women who, intentionally or unintentionally get pregnant and have shorter spaced pregnancies and often have healthy pregnancies. So it's obviously not the end of the world if you do get pregnant. And they're spaced closer than that, but I think it's important to be gracious to yourself and to your body. And so if you can, I think around 2 years is a good time frame.
Great. Tori, anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I did want to ask both of you, are you talking about 2 years then start trying? So when the first child is 2 years old, then start trying, or are you 2 years between deliveries?
Between deliveries is what I was saying, yeah.
So Rachel's saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that we're so privileged in this day and age to be able to even talk about this, right? So 1,000 years ago, when women are having babies, they didn't have the choice to use formula. They didn't have, they were breastfeeding, and they were usually probably breastfeeding for 3 or 4 years. So if you look, and I don't know like a resource or anything on this, but from what I've read, back in like indigenous societies, it would be usually about 3 to 4 years in between children, and that's assuming that they were not getting pregnant when they were breastfeeding, and they would breastfeed for about that amount of time. But my personal experience is I had a son in 2010, I had a daughter in 2012, and it was hard. I was 34 and 36 when I delivered, and each of them, and it was really hard. And so I think when you're younger, it might be easier to cram them together a little bit closer. But I think you should really give yourself the grace and the time, and the fact that when you have another child, and your little one is 2, and now you have a newborn baby, it's so hard to be able to give them the attention and the focus that you want to give them when you're juggling 2 at that point. So all those things, I think we try and plan our lives so they're going to graduate this day and that day. And maybe we need to all just take a deep breath and let it happen when it's supposed to happen. But yeah, I would really encourage all new moms to breastfeed for as long as they can, and then hopefully it will, spread them out naturally. But it doesn't always happen that way. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some great points from all of you, so thank you guys for sharing your opinions on that. So, as we kind of look to wrap up, and I'm not seeing a ton of other questions come through at this moment, but Rachel did share the link for Garden of Fertility, so everybody can check that out if they're looking for additional resources. I really just want to give each of you the opportunity to say any like gems that you've been holding on to and ready to share with everybody, because I think even what your pep talk would be for some of these moms who maybe are on this path and are anxious to be mamas, and maybe have had some stumbling blocks, or their path has been a little bit longer. And I think we all know there are lots that go into that, and we are all individuals. So can I open the floor again just to anybody that wants to speak to that? Tori, do you have
Sure.
any gems for us?
Sure. I think the one thing that I would really say is just to try to really give yourself the benefit of the doubt and focus on yourself first. You know, so if you can change the way you're eating and you can start exercising, I know it's hard, but it's not going to get any easier once you get pregnant and have a baby. So if you can really, you know, put that as your first priority and don't go down the what if path. You know, what if I can't? What if I never will? It's not worth it. Just focus on yourself and really taking the best care you can of yourself. Looking to natural means like, you know, a naturopath or an herbalist or an acupuncturist or a homeopath. Looking to those things first. If that's not working, then you can always go, you know, the Clomid route. But, you know, trying to really support yourself and do things that make sense first. And then, you know, if and when you're running into big stumbling blocks, seek more, you know, clinical help. But if you know that you're not sleeping enough, you're exercising either way too much or not at all, you know, start with those basics first and then really work from there.
That's great. Erin? How on you?
I very much agree with everything that Tori just said. I think it's really important to just try as much as you can to take it one day at a time and not to overthink it too much, because you can really get inside your head if you do that. So just try to, as much as you can, enjoy the process. Take care of yourself. As she was saying, eat healthy, exercise. You know, make those adjustments that, I mean, I think most of us know the adjustments that need to be made in our lives. We know we're not getting enough sleep, or we know that we could improve our diets. But you know, try to just take it one thing at a time, and don't. I think one of the things that I did was I knew of so many different things that I could potentially try that could help with my fertility, and it was hard not to try to do all of them all at once and to just overdo it. Again, just take it one day at a time, one thing at a time, and you know, believe in your body. Don't lose hope, because it does eventually happen. It may not be the easiest route, but the vast majority of the time, eventually you're going to get pregnant, and it's going to be the perfect baby that was meant, you know, for you, that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't gotten pregnant at the exact time that you got pregnant. So
I think those are great points. Yeah. Okay, Rachel, your turn.
So I agree 100%. I see a lot working with fertility and also working as a birth worker. We are so like goal oriented, like just focusing on, like, especially in birth work, like just focusing on the birth. And I'm sure you see that too. And then what happens after? And with fertility, it's the same as like just getting pregnant. And my gem or my takeaway is like, enjoy the process. Like, if you can create a baby out of the energy of enjoying that process of doing it, and it's like that saying, like, it's the journey, not the destination. It's cliche, but it's true. And that energy that you're carrying is going to be so much different than just this, like, you know, it's not fun. Have fun with it. That's my gem.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And then do your Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
I have so much joy doing that. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been fantastic information. So I just want to thank each of you for taking the time to be with us today and to answer some of these questions and to talk about this topic, because you know, it's definitely on people's hearts and minds. And so I'm happy that we get to provide some information. And I just want to kind of bring this back and let you guys all know this is part of our Wellness Webinar series, and it's all leading us up to Saturday's big Wellness Village event celebrating the first anniversary of Baby and Company. And so we have a bunch of these fantastic providers. If you are in this phase of life and you're here in Denver and you're thinking, okay, well, how do I get connected with the people who know nutrition or can talk to me about homeopathy or, you know, Mayan abdominal massage, and who are these people that work in these fields? This is a great way to get connected. We have fabulous door prizes and food trucks and shopping, and it's going to be an awesome day. So please do come on Saturday, and we have a whole series of webinars. This is our first On Thursday, we'll be talking about the mind-body connection during pregnancy. Next week, we'll be diving into building your birth team, starting with your partner, and how to put all those people in place that are part of your birth team. And then we're wrapping up with an awesome parenting webinar, and it's going to be on new parent sleep strategies. So any of us who have had children or have heard stories, sleep is a major thing, and so we're happy to be talking about that as our final webinar. Please do stay tuned for the rest of what we have to offer. And I also want to give each of you an opportunity to talk a little bit about how people can find you. If you liked what any of our awesome panelists have had to say today, I would encourage you to contact them after this and follow up. And so Tori, can you just tell us where, maybe your website or where people can find you?
Sure. Yeah, my website is www.homeopathy, the whole word homeopathy, and then the number 1 ST. So it's homeopathy first with the number 1 ST. And I'm also on Facebook with Homeopathy First, the word spelled out. And yeah, you can email me at tori.homeopath@gmail.com.
Great. Thanks, Tori. How about you, Rachel?
My website is boulderfertility.com, and my email is rachel@boulderfertility.com.
Great. And Erin, you can send people to the clinic, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm at Baby & Company. Our general website is www.babyandcompany.com, but if you want to get specifically to the Wheat Ridge site, you can put in wheatridge.babyandcompany.com. Our phone number is 720-418-8186. We'd love anybody, pregnant or not pregnant, who wants to stop by for a tour to see what the center looks like, to meet some of the providers. We also do well woman care, as we talked about, preconception and fertility counseling and all of that good stuff. And then you can come hang out with us at the Wellness Village on June 4th.
Yeah, fantastic. And that is at 38th and Wadsworth in Wheat Ridge on Saturday from 9 to 1. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. I hope that we've helped you, bust some myths about getting pregnant and share with you some truths too. And there's lots of people that want to stand with you on this journey. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you to our panelists.
Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.